Hey everyone, it's Kendra Badgekar with LPT Realty here with
Maxine Carey of Guardian Mortgage.
Welcome back to Your Road to Home, a podcast that takes you past your front door. Tune in and listen to some of Carbon Valley's finest here, whether it's business owners, local leaders, or maybe even your neighbor. And it doesn't matter if you're a local to the area or just moving in, this podcast is for you to learn how to love where you live.
Awesome. Sounds like a great podcast. Anyway, we are about to pick up Merrie Garner. She's from the Frederick Firestone Fire Protection Agency. She's going to talk about all sorts of emergency stuff. Emergency preparedness, what the fire district does, helps us with, that sort of thing.
Yes, we are super excited to just hear what she has to share with you guys today.
Yes, and she's been in the community for a long time, hasn't she?
Yeah, we'll have to ask her how long.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hi, Merrie.
Hi, how are you guys?
Good, how are you?
Just fine.
It's a fiery hot day today.
Yeah.
It's a nice warm one today.
Yeah.
Are you able to move to the middle?
Sure.
Sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
We want to see your beautiful face.
Yeah. Do I get a seatbelt or?
Yeah, you do have a seatbelt. And sorry, I was moving before you even got buckled in. I'm usually so proactive with the safety.
Safety first.
Yeah, it's like, okay, let's see if I can get this buckled and we'll get on our way. All right, go for it.
You good?
Yep.
Awesome. Well, thanks for being here, Merrie.
You bet. Thanks for having me.
Of course.
We are super excited for you to be here today. Why don't we just start with a little introduction about you, how long you've been in the Carbon Valley, and what you're doing.
Sure. So, I've actually been in emergency management for about 17 years, but moved to Frederick in 2006. So worked in kind of Boulder County and Weld County, but got involved from time to time with things that were happening here just because it was my home. And really my goal was to hopefully have a position in the community where I lived. So eventually we made that happen. In 2019, I started on April 1st, which is the same day that FEMA was founded. So we joked about that. But April 1st, 2019, it was when we started this agency. So it was kind of it's a little bit of an innovative thing. It's not, it's a municipal level emergency management agency that is combining 3 municipalities and a fire district. So that's kind of a new thing in Colorado. It's been done kind of city county with Boulder and in Colorado Springs, but this was really the first time we tried to take 3 towns or 3 municipalities in one community and build one, emergency management program around that. So we're, I'm not ready to declare success or failure yet, but we've come a long way. So
that's awesome. That's much needed for a community this large because you've seen it grow tremendously since 2006.
Absolutely, and that was a lot of the motivation was we're growing faster than we can kind of keep up with, and we needed to have a plan. So, yeah.
Awesome. What are some of the most significant challenges you face trying to coordinate this large of a agency?
I think it's kind of what we all feel living here as residents. There's 3 really distinct municipalities, right? There's 3 really distinct, I guess I would say, each one of them has their own personality in a sense.
Right.
I liken them to siblings, though, in one family. Mm-hmm. And so for me, it's really been how to coordinate and connect between them so that we have one set of plans that covers the larger community, if you will, of the Carbon Valley. But to kind of, make sense of the way Firestone does something versus the way Dacono does it. And I think, in that sense, Mountain View was part of the agency for the first couple of years, and then they split off to do their own emergency management things. So Dacono is still covered by Mountain View Fire. Obviously, Frederick Firestone Fire covers Frederick and Firestone. Mm-hmm. So that's been a little bit of a challenge to kind of get that coordination. And then I think the other big overarching one is just generally people don't really know what I do. They don't really know what emergency management is and what our role is in local government. So I feel like I spend a lot of time explaining what I do and then the rest of the time doing it.
Sure. Can we get that explanation?
Yeah. Exactly. I don't know. We're responsible. Emergency management is really the local government function that is responsible for the whole disaster cycle. So that means we do some preparedness things, which includes writing plans for government agencies, but also includes helping the community understand how they can be prepared. Okay. And then we support response. We say that we lead coordination and response. I'm not boots on the ground, but I support them with resources and information while they're responding. And then when the initial response kind of dies down, emergency management often kind of comes to the forefront in recovery and helping the community recover. And there's a huge coordination piece there with all of the nonprofits and the service agencies and the people that are actually serving people to help them recover. And that's everything from mental health to transportation to housing, whatever that might be. And then kind of the last almost forgotten piece is mitigation, where we're always looking for what are the things we can do now to make our community more resilient to disaster. So build a new culvert, or raise a building up out of the floodplain, or those kinds of things. So we're responsible for that disaster cycle, and that's how we approach our work, I guess. If that makes sense.
So do you manage the reverse 911 calls if there is a disaster?
We don't manage them. That all goes through the local dispatch center. So they're the ones that would be sending out those messages. As emergency management, I can certainly generate a message. I mean, I have the, authority to send one if I wanted to. But almost always, I would say 99% of the time, I'm going to defer to somebody on the street, a firefighter, a battalion chief, a sergeant at the police department, somebody who's boots on the ground saying we need to evacuate this neighborhood. And then I'm going to say, okay, tell me your north, south, east, and west streets so I can know what message to send. Does that make sense? So I may not be creating the message, but I might be communicating it to dispatch so they can send it.
Nice. Okay. So are you're communicating if there is a disaster? Where do you go to get help? Where do you go to get,
Yes, and so in that case, like we try to think of information management as we use every tool in the toolbox that we have. So it might be Facebook, it might be Twitter, it might be on our own website that we're driving people to, where we're constantly posting updates. We're using the media. You guys probably know Summer Compost. She's our public information officer. So anytime we have a disaster, we're going to be working with her and her counterparts from the towns and the city, I should say.
So really, if you're in the Carbon Valley area, they should be following you on Facebook, and not necessarily you, but the fire prevention, if they need any updates or if there's anything that you need to push out to the community.
Yeah, and I have to say, my little Facebook page has grown quite a bit in the last couple of years, but Carbon Valley Emergency Management Agency on Facebook.
Okay.
We'll link that in here so you can grab that from the description.
Yeah.
So, and that's, I push out a lot of routine stuff too, so that's the other thing, is that when you're a small agency and you're new, you try to find ways to add value. So definitely whenever we have a warning or there's weather coming in, blizzard stuff, severe thunderstorms, I try to kind of post about that and do a little bit of education too, so that there's always stuff going up. And sometimes it's just plain fun stuff like cupcake ingredients, and then finished cupcakes, that's the equivalent of a watch and a warning, right? So the ingredients for cupcakes means there's all of the things you need to have cupcakes, but then once the cupcakes are done, that's cupcake warning, right? So that's how you understand the difference between a watch and a warning. So we try to make it fun, we try to make it accessible for people and put it into terms that are kind of everyday that people can understand.
Do you push out when there isn't a fire ban in the community? Because we have those, in the summertime, right?
When there's a fire ban, did you say?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a new thing in Weld County. It's only been in this last year that we've had kind of red flag warning fire ban kind of days, and that was something that the fire districts and even the police departments kind of really worked for a long time to get everybody on the same page about that. So yeah, we will. We tend to try not to step on each other's toes. So to the extent that the fire district is putting stuff out, we share their stuff, and when I put stuff out, they share my stuff. But we try to stay in our lane. So and I would say probably the most important thing about that is that you guys may know this from a real estate perspective or whatever, but the confused mind says no, right? Yes. So we really want to make sure that our messaging is consistent. And if I'm saying go to high ground and flood, then whenever they're saying that, they're saying the same thing. So we really don't want to confuse people.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, people start to panic when they're confused.
Yeah.
Can you describe a memorable moment or success story from your work that's had a significant impact on our area? anything that has happened recently?
Gosh, I don't know about recently. Speaking of the challenges, one of the other challenges is that we don't have a super high tempo of disasters here, right? So,
Right. So we've been pretty fortunate.
Yeah. So
Lucky
Yes.
for us.
Yes.
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, which is not a bad thing, right? But we also have less opportunity to practice. So we have to do trainings and exercises. So I would say that's probably one of the things that we've done very well is we every year in the fall, usually September, October, we have a training exercise. And what we kind of set up a disaster scenario, and it might be we usually start with like a tabletop exercise, which is more discussion based. We just bring everybody together and we say a tornado's on its way or a tornado just hit town, and then we have a guided discussion about who's doing what are you doing, and what happens is those expectations and that coordination kind of comes out in that discussion. And then the next year we might do something a little more amped up, like now we're going to pretend like it's actually happening and we're going to act as if the thing just happened and see if we can work our processes and how we communicate and how we coordinate. And then the next year we usually do something like a full scale.
Nice.
So a few years ago we did a full scale hazmat exercise. We had a simulated bus crash and a hazmat, and we actually had hazmat teams and fire apparatus and police officers staged in the field using radios and talking to the emergency operations center. So those are the best opportunities, and I think there are best moments of true coordination and support for each other, which is like my favorite thing about this job. My goal when I came here was to really, I say ready together, right? The Carbon Valley ready together, to really bring the three communities together over something that we can all agree about, right?
Yeah. Yep, that's awesome. What advice would you give to residents here to improve their own emergency preparedness?
I think a lot of it is just people, I think, get overwhelmed by the idea of, I have to have a kit and I have to go buy all this weird food. Like my mom used to buy beef stew in a can because for some reason in her mind that was what we would eat if we had to bug out, which is so weird, right? We
Makes
never,
sense to me.
We never ate that at home. Like that wasn't a thing in our house. So I think a lot of it is just breaking it down into smaller steps. One of my life mantras, and certainly at work, is that if you can't solve a big problem with big solutions. You have to break it down into smaller steps. So make it smaller, and decide what's important. So a lot about what I would say is like, look at your life and say, what are the key things that we're going to need if we had 10 minutes to evacuate? And then make that list and start gathering those things. And also, what if we were stuck in our house for 2 weeks? How much stuff would we need? I'm not saying go out and buy 2 weeks worth of food and water and everything else, but maybe buy a couple of extra things at the grocery store each time you go. Especially like with prices right now. I mean, things are hard for a lot of families, right?
Yes.
So we want to try to make it easy and make it smaller for people. And then I would probably say go to our website, look at the preparedness guide, make sure you know what to do in the hazards that might affect us. So, fire, tornado, flood are the big three, plus our general severe weather. But we've got all the tips and all the stuff there for people to look at, and call me if you want to do a class, if you want to, if you have questions. I mean, we're certainly always available to help, kind of help people figure out their own situations.
Very cool. We'll make sure we have that website linked in here as well to that preparedness list. That's great that you guys have that.
I was thinking, like, you always think about emergency preparedness where you have to pack and go,
Yeah.
not what if you had to stay in your house for,
That's a great point.
Yeah,
that's just
we tell
something
people, like, you really have two choices. Most disasters, there's two choices. I can stay here or I can go someplace else, right?
Yeah.
So, and that's largely going to depend on your situation. That's the other thing about emergency preparedness. It's very personal. Like, you can find family plans out there, but only you know if you need an extra pair of eyeglasses or contact solution, or maybe someone in your family has a medication that needs to be refrigerated, right? So those are specific considerations. You just have to kind of think through, what does it look like for me if I have to go someplace else? It's a lot like traveling. So,
Yeah.
so, just in a very quick way.
Well, and somebody told me that, when you're in an emergency situation, it's hard to remember those things. So you should have a note that you if you're in an emergency, go and get your notes so that you know all the things that you need.
Yeah, and I think, it's not unreasonable if you have younger kids or you have a big family and everybody's kind of in different places. It's a good idea to practice it too. Just like we exercise because we don't have them often. I think for most people it's a good idea to say, okay, what would we do if this happened tonight? Good thunderstorm is an occasion to have that conversation, right? But what would we do if we had to, sort of thing.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Detour, we're going by Bella Rosa.
I was thinking I was going to go that way, but
yeah, construction everywhere these days.
Construction everywhere.
That's good. My kids actually brought that up because last year they did their drills at school for fire or evacuation or anything like that. And they came home and said, what do we do if that happens at our house, Mom? I'm like, well, that's a great point. We should practice that and talk about that.
The fire department's so great at it, right? Your kids learn stop, drop, and roll, and then they come home. They come home with a paper, and you're supposed to fill out your evacuation plan. And fire service has been doing this for a long time. I think for emergency management, it's a little harder because most people can imagine their house catching on fire, right? Because we're just used to firefighters and kind of what they do.
Right.
Most people don't want to think about what happens if a tornado hits our town.
Right.
It's more about we hope it never happens to us. So it's a little bit of a harder conversation to have, but on the subject of kids, I'm a firm believer that kids would much rather know and talk about it ahead of time than be terrified and never had any idea what would happen.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely agree with that.
Yeah.
Is there any other information that you want to share with the community?
I would just say that, like, wherever you live in the community, it's, look around and kind of see where you live. Like, we drive around and I think to myself, well, we had a whole bunch of farms, right? And then we had, like, a subdivision got built, and then you have a farm or two, and then you have another subdivision. So that open space could represent, in a really dry year, it might represent, a higher fire danger, right?
Sure. That's a good
So
point.
think about what kind of materials are right next to my house. Am I cutting back my trees? Do I have rock versus mulch? Things that could catch on fire right next to my house, right?
Yeah.
Or if you live near a drainage ditch or at kind of a low-lying point, like you can see as you're driving around, you look ahead, like even on the road that we're on right now, you can see how it dips down. So even in the floods in 2013, those areas of town were underwater.
Right.
So I'm not saying don't buy a house there or don't enjoy that place. Just kind of understand what your risk is, and just plan accordingly. Really.
Yeah, that's some great advice right there.
Yeah. The other thing that's kind of fun, I'll just mention in case you are interested. So another way that we kind of practice is we also use what we call an incident action planning process. We call it the planning P. And it's just a series of kind of planning steps. And we use that for all of our planned events in the Carbon Valley. Because one, we want to be ready if something happens during the event. But two, it gives us an opportunity to practice as though it were an incident, but using kind of a planned event in a more controlled, safe environment. So that's kind of what we're heading into right now this season is, we've got Frederick and Flight coming up, we've got 4th of Firestone coming up, and then the Dacono Spirit Music Festival in August. So there's kind of some opportunities during the summer to practice some of what we do. So this is always a busy season for me, but I really enjoy it. It's kind of the fun part is getting to do the events.
Oh yeah, those are great events. Here's a question that you may not have the answer to, but I know you guys just started that new fire station, number 5, I think, over by Windham Hill area. Do you guys have open positions over there? Are you still looking to fill that station, or
are we still looking to build the station?
No, to fill it. Do you need more firefighters or paramedics at that station? Are you? Is there any openings?
So the fire district is my home agency and one of my partners. So I'm peripherally aware. We just had a bunch of new recruits that started, but I know that they will be, we'll be continuing to hire at different points throughout the year. Station 5 is due to open, I think, late summer, early fall-ish. And then Station 6 is going to be underway right after that, which is up in Windham Hill.
Awesome.
So there's lots of growth with the fire district as well. And hopefully that brings more opportunity. And, we always want to keep our response times really good like they are now, right? So it's good to see them expanding to kind of meet the need of the community.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I just want to put a little bug out there just in case.
Yeah.
We've got more folks looking for jobs like that.
Yeah, we're really fortunate to have, I know both police departments all 3 police departments are also hiring. That's been a hard thing, you know, to get everybody hired, but it's just always happens. You guys, I'm sure you've seen it. The growth happens, and then kind of the infrastructure comes in behind it.
Yeah.
To shore it up. So I think we're at a really good point right now in the community where we're starting to see that infrastructure growth, and I think it's going to be, you know, the future is very bright for me. In another 5 years, we'll have the most amazing emergency management agency in Colorado. Is my goal.
I love that.
Really?
That's
So-
awesome.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, this was an experiment, but I think it's going to be. I think we're seeing municipal level emergency management agencies, because when disasters hit, they hit local communities, right? They don't hit the whole county, especially Weld, which is so huge.
Right.
It just makes sense, and I think I'd like to think that they were really forward thinking in trying something like this, and I hope that I feel like I'm good at building things, so I want to build it up to that point where we can really, you know, make it great, and then maybe I get to retire at some point and I turn it over to someone else. That's my goal.
Awesome.
So were other municipalities reaching out to you for direction?
I've had a few, you know, I'm part of on a national level, I'm part of a municipal emergency management caucus, and we definitely have similar challenges. I would say Greeley kind of is developing a really well-defined emergency management program for the first time. We've seen Johnstown. I've met with their new emergency manager. They have a guy now. Windsor has someone. So we are seeing more of that at the local level, and you know, it's kind of weird to be the I don't know, the sage, the older, more experienced one. but you know, we all help each other out a lot, and that's the beauty of, I think, emergency management. While it's a small community, it's a very tight-knit community. We all know each other pretty well, and I feel like I'm a phone call away from as much help as I can take if something happens. So that's also a good thing.
Yeah, that's great to hear.
Yeah.
Well, we like to end our podcast with a few rapid fire questions just to get to know you on a better level, so our listeners can get to know Merrie Garner.
Okay.
What's one of your favorite things to do on the weekend out here in Carbon Valley?
Oh gosh. Oh my goodness, that's a hard question. Eat.
All right, perfect. What's one of your favorite local restaurants, or top three?
I mean, we love to go out to breakfast with Gabe's, you know, as
Yeah.
one, and Peppers, I think, is the other spot that we hit a lot. Hacienda Jalisco, probably favorite Mexican, and then love the Indian place, love Eversmaya.
I just heard that. I haven't tried that place yet. I gotta get out there.
Love it.
I've heard it's really good.
Where's that?
So good. It's over on Cimarron, kind of right by the Domino's. It's over on
Across
that.
from the Walgreens.
Oh yeah.
Very cool.
Okay, what else?
Are you a podcast listener or a book reader?
Yes, both.
Both. Okay. Do you have a favorite book you've read recently?
I just finished Stephen King's Fairy Tale, which is not a horror one, but it's fantastic.
Okay, that's good to know. What's your favorite podcast channel?
Probably The Lazy Genius.
The Lazy Genius. I haven't heard of that.
Actually, The Lazy Genius, yeah.
I'll have to check that one out. What's your dream vacation destination?
Beach.
Nice. Anywhere
Beach.
with any beach?
Hawaii probably, but yeah, I'll take any beach pretty much.
Have you been to Hawaii already?
Have not. My husband
Okay.
lived there for 9 years, so that's next on our list.
Yes, you guys must go. That's one of my favorite places to visit for sure.
When's your next beach vacation?
Probably not till October.
Nice.
And weirdly, we're heading to Alabama. I know it doesn't sound, but it's kind of cool.
Well, as long as there's sand, you can put your feet in the sand.
Right? That's all I care about.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
That's awesome.
All right, Merrie.
Well, Merrie, sorry. Thank you for joining us today on our Road to Home little podcast, learning more about the Carbon Valley.
This was so fun. Thanks, you guys.
Yeah, thanks for spending some time with us.
You are very welcome, and we look forward to seeing you all on your next Road to Home.
Yeah.
All right,
Bye for now.
Bye-bye.